The 2025 College Baseball Fantasy Draft on the College Baseball Experience is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up today with the promo code TCESGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. And we're also brought to you by Edge Boost. Earn up to $750 per month on your sports gambling transactions. Go to edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. And the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And it is showtime. Welcome back to the College Baseball Experience. I'm going to waste no time. We're going to jump right into a college baseball fantasy draft filled with all-star college baseball content creators. We have some returning drafters from last year's fantasy draft, and we also added a couple of new ones as well. Few rules that I didn't touch on at the beginning with them that I want to clear up before we jump in. They mention it sometimes. We had to draft like a Big Ten player, I believe was a statement. Roster rules. You had to draft at least one player from the SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10, and you had to at least draft one mid-major baseball player. You could only draft a max of 5 players from one conference. So one team can only have 5 SEC players. You can only have a max of 3 players from one specific team. You can only have a max of 2 hitters or 2 pitchers from one specific team. So you could have 2 hitters and 1 pitcher, or 2 pitchers and 1 hitter from one specific team. The fantasy baseball we're playing is basically like a best ball, but there's no head-to-head matchups. It's just at the end of the year, whoever has the highest score of all their starting players. So they could have backup players at different positions. Like we'll draft a 4th and a 5th pitcher, but we're only starting 3 pitchers. The 3 highest scoring pitchers at the end of the year contribute towards the team's score. And yeah, so best ball there, it's points scoring. So the only thing that we've changed for anybody that is avid fantasy baseball players out there from the traditional point scoring system is we made it -2 for walks, because college baseball pitchers are pretty dominant. So exciting episode. Like I said, all-star cast. I want to thank all of them for jumping in and doing this. I was hitting them up in mid-December to get this thing ready to go. I was like, get your prep in now, because when we started up, who knows how fast it'll go. We began the first week of January, and honestly, like first 8 rounds went in the first 2 days. And we had a couple of guys at the ABCA convention, so it was inconvenient for them. I appreciate them still working with us though, and it was a lot of fun. So we did have one guy absent from this video. I mean, we tried all off-season, preseason to get all 8 teams present, but one guy came down with the flu just a day before we had this scheduled, and a week out. I represented his team, just listed him off. You'll find out in just a second. But thank you all for tuning in. You're going to enjoy this episode. All right. And here is the college baseball fantasy draft all-star cast that I was talking about. To save a whole lot of time, because last year we only had 5 people in this thing, and it was very fun, but it ran an hour and a half long. Here's how we're going to structure this thing this year. A lot of people love the early picks, so we're going to go picking one by one for the first 3 rounds. Everybody kind of gets to explain 1 or 2 things why they drafted each of their first 3 players that they're kind of building their entire roster around. And then I've made some team-specific graphics that we're going to be able to display. Everybody will be able to run through pick by pick their team for the upcoming year. The fantasy league is basically going to be all the tallied of points at the end of the season. We're not doing week by week head-to-head matchups. It's points scoring for fantasy baseball nerds out there. The only thing that we've changed is walks are -2 instead of 1. Everything else is the exact same. We're going to have each of these guys introduce themselves right before they pick in the first round. We did this by random draft order. I screen recorded my phone, just put it into some random draft order generator, and we ended up with Ben Upton, myself, Noah Darling, third, Will Mossa, fourth, NCAA Insiders, Matt Grissom and Quentin Mills, fifth, Jake Fetner, sixth, Johnny Venezia, seventh, and Alfred Ezman, eighth. Again, all of them will be able to introduce themselves and plug away everything that they're doing throughout the year. Ben Upton, you're on the clock first, my friend. Who are you taking with the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 college baseball fantasy draft?
Yeah, I mean, I can't jump right into it, Noah. First of all, I want to thank you for putting this together. This is really cool. Something that I think college baseball misses out on in like the fantasy world of it. Everybody gets obsessed with fantasy football in the fall, and then some nerds like myself like to play fantasy baseball in the spring/summertime for Major League Baseball. So when you invited me, it was cool. It was cool for me, Dimitri, and Jack, all at the 11.7 podcast, and I'll be the face of the podcast today. And yeah, I'll make my first pick. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. We added another guy real quick too, Quentin Mills from the Insiders. So Quentin? He's representing the 5th pick as well with Grissom. But go ahead, number 1 pick belongs to 11.7.
Well, Q Millie's always stealing my thunder. So like right in the middle of my first pick, he just hops in there. So that's about right. But I'll take a lot of people's unanimous number 1 overall prospect. It was a no-brainer for us. 50 career collegiate homers in 2 seasons. And I have the yip saying his name. I told you guys off air, but Jace Laviolette. I call him Jace La Purplish because of violet, and it's kind of purplish. So Jace La Purplish.
And he has a Teletubbies nickname. So
yeah. And but yeah, I mean, 29 homers last year, 6'6", 240, something crazy like that. But as athletic as a deer, just I think the most star power in college baseball right now. So easy first pick.
Awesome. I was on the clock, 2nd overall pick, defending champ of this league, by the way. No need to, selfish plug.
Who
for
finished
myself
dead
there,
last, Noah?
I believe it was this college baseball stats company / gambling company called NCAA Insiders or College Baseball Insiders. They go by 2 names. It's hard to follow sometimes.
Ben,
multiple
who won
different
the
logos.
11.7 Pick'em contest, though?
Oh, that was QM. That was Q Millie 7 or something, whatever his nickname is.
So I kept players. That's the key to not losing.
I kept the same draft strategy as last year. Started pitching heavy, number 2 overall. This one was kind of a slam dunk. Jamie Arnold, he was All-American last year, posted 298 ERA, struck out 159 in 105.2 innings with only 26 walks. Number 3 overall belongs to Noah Darling in College Baseball Central. Go ahead.
Yeah, Noah, once again, to steal Ben's thunder, it's great to be here. I think when I look at the screen and I see 8 guys, I think of Around the Horn back in the day, coming home from school and turning that on. But I see why this takes 90 minutes because we've had 5 minutes here of almost nothing. I saw a cat run across the screen. Yeah. We've had 2 picks, and I've just cleared my whole evening. But I'm with College Baseball Central, as you said, founded it a while back. We've expanded a lot. As Ben always likes to say, "Oh, this guy will be at College Baseball Central next year." He's probably right. We got guys all over the country, and just excited to be a part of this. And they don't really know who I picked, so not their fault if this team sucks. But thank God the Insiders are here to rectify that situation. But with the number 3 pick, I went with Drew Burris. Talk about freshman of the year last year, 25 homers, stole 8 bags along the way. When you think about guys who might go number 1 overall next year, it's kind of hard to pass on that, especially when Jace Laviolette, which just rolls off the tongue, by the way, was off the board.
Love it. And I also forgot to mention one other thing. All of this was drafted weeks ago, by the way. And with 8 people, hard to create one day where we're all open, somehow able to do this February 4th. We started drafting January 3rd. Ben Upton and Noah Darling were both at the ABCA convention, so that was tough in itself. But I was like, I just know how stressful this will be to get all the schedules to align, so we needed to do it as early as possible. And I was happy to get all this ready to go. And it happened pretty damn quick, much faster draft than it was last year. I told you guys in the text group, and there was 8 people this year instead of 5. I mean, the guys that are returning in this league know It kind of went longer last year. Up number 4, the third new guy in this fantasy league, 3 of 4 with the first 4 picks. Will Mossa, you're on the clock here.
Yeah, very stoked to be here. I cover college baseball with Backside Ground Balls Media. You can also find me on Twitter at Overdue Sports. I've been on the college baseball experience a couple of times, so I was very, very excited when you invited me to be in this thing. With the number 4 overall pick, didn't really think he'd get to me, but he did. Got to go Tyler Bremner, beef up the starting rotation, struck out 104 in 88 innings last year, barely walks guys. He's going to be right up in the conversation with Jamie Arnold for Pitcher of the Year this year, so I was very happy he made it to me. Tyler Bremner, that's the pick.
Awesome. Yeah, last year, the College Baseball Insiders, a lot of the picks went through Grissom, and I noticed there was a strategic change as Quentin was submitting a lot of the picks this year. I don't know who wants to announce this first-round pick, but boys, you're on the clock.
Yeah, I'll let Q take it over. I was MIA for, I guess, the first half of the draft.
Yeah, when I saw Cam Canarella get off the board, Bremner was who I wanted. Obviously, he slips right before us, but Cam Canarella, kind of like the Willie Mays of the modern day baseball right now. He's just a no-brainer at the number 5 pick, solidify the center field spot. I think he's out for a huge breakout season this year. I mean, with a torn shoulder, he's one of the best center fielders, not only defensively but offensively last year. I think his numbers are going to look a lot better this year than what they were last year.
Yeah, good point too. Played through a torn labrum. Didn't steal a single bag last year, but his freshman year, I think he had like upper 20s. So
yeah,
a whole nother asset of his game.
30. Yeah,
a whole nother asset of his game that could be fantasy worthy there. Jake Fetner, you're up 6th there. Who's your pick?
I'm glad to be back for year 2 of this. It's very fun. Enjoy getting to meet a whole new group of guys. It's kind of weird that all the new guys got the top picks. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But so I went with Andrew Fisher, Tennessee, transferred from Ole Miss this offseason. It's not going to have the best average, but he hit 20 bombs, hit 275 last year. But every single report I read in the fall, he was hitting bombs in Tennessee's practices. So I think he's due for a huge year. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 30, 35 bombs this year and leads the country.
Yeah, speaking of bombs, Alberto Osuna. We'd already did our SEC preview, but he transferred in to Tennessee just this last weekend. 7th, picking 7th overall was Johnny Venezia. He currently writes for RotoWire. He's a guest co-host on the College Baseball Experience this season, new co-host there. And also he has his own podcast called Breaking Bet. You can follow him at _JohnVTV. His first pick was Henry Ford. I have big shoes to fill here, so I'm going to try to use his terminology. He hit 17 tatas last year, set the freshman home run record for Virginia, batted .336 with 69 RBI. Nice. And I believe Johnny has a Golden Spikes ticket on this kid, so he's very high on Henry Ford. That leaves us with Alfred Ezman, the last pick in the first round, but it's a snake draft, so he's got 2 in a row here. Go ahead and name them both and introduce yourself to the crowds.
Yeah, guys, thank you for having me with y'all. This is going to be really fun, keeping track of this a little bit all season. I'm Alfred Ezman. I write about college baseball for World Baseball Network, and I'm a co-host with Southeastern 16 on their SEC baseball podcast. So that's kind of the outlets and avenues I'm in within the game. Jake, don't worry. This new guy to the draft had the last pick, so he didn't get a high pick. I was not one of those guys. But as you said, Noah, the benefit of it is having 2 picks here. With that being said, I went a position guy and then followed it up with a pitcher. The position guy I went with in the first round is Iva Arquette out of Oregon State. Very high MLB draft prospect, batted .311 last year, 17 home runs, all Pac-12, everything, rest in peace to the Pac-12 conference. But as far as transfers go, he's one of the top ones, I think, in the game. He's going to have a huge impact at Oregon State and was really excited about him. So do I just go right to the second round with mine?
Yep, go ahead. Before we do get to Alfred's second round pick, actually, let's talk about The free squares pool that SGPN is currently running for the Super Bowl, $1,000 winner take all for the final square. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/squares to sign up today. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/squares. And due to popular demand, if we get 200 entries, we will release another $1,000 free squares pool. And the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by DraftKings. This isn't the little itty bitty teeny tiny bowl. This is the Super Bowl. Get in the action over at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them over at DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in New York. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in Connecticut. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. SGPN's partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing ones from the leaderboard, or Rhythm will build you a model just for you. Whether it be NFL picks, NFL props, college basketball, NBA, Rhythm has it all. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. Now back to the 2025 college baseball fantasy draft.
All right. So to open up the second round, I went with Aiden Knack out of Clemson. As far as aces go around the country, he doesn't have the status, I think, of, a Jamie Arnold or a Tyler Bremner, but he's right up in there in the fold amongst some of the best aces in all of college baseball. It'll be tough games for opponents who play Clemson when they have to face them on weekends. So, yeah, I went with the position player and ace pitcher to start out, and so I went Aiden Knack and then Ava Arquette.
Great 2 picks there. Really good use of the snake turn. Johnny on the clock next. He selected Devin Taylor of Indiana, an outfielder. He was an All-American last year. He led the Big Ten with 20 home runs, 67 runs scored as well. He batted .357 with 54 RBI. Jake, you're on the clock.
Yeah, I forgot to introduce myself. I work for CBS Sports. I do data analytics for SportsLine, so the gambling affiliate of CBS. And I always did college baseball on the side, but we're starting to build that up for SportsLine. So you'll have a brand new model from us this year, us meaning me. I'm trying to get the guys at CBS into college baseball. But I was hoping Henry Ford slid back to me over here. But, of course, Johnny not only stole my ticket on him to win the Golden Spikes after I told him he was draft eligible, he stole my pick. So I went with another big bat in Nolan Schubart. I had him last year. I think he was my top scorer. He was hurt for a big chunk of the season and still absolutely raked. And then he went to the college national team and also raked for them. I think just another big bat in that lineup with Fisher.
NCAA Insiders, you guys are next. College baseball insiders.
Yeah, that was a really good pick there, Jake. I've got a ticket on him to win the Golden Spikes. I think he's going to have a big year. It didn't take long for us to get a Razorback off the board. Zach Root. Probably should have taken Gabe Gackle. He looks like he's secured that Friday night spot. But lefty wearing number 33 for Dave Van Horn, so he thinks pretty highly of Root here. So went with Zach Root, the transfer from ECU.
Will Mossa, you're next.
Yeah, I was really hoping Schubart would make it to me. I'm super high on him coming into this year as well, but he did not. So what better way than to shore up my backstop position, I'm taking Ike Irish, the catcher from Auburn. Hit 14 home runs last year, nearly 60 RBIs. Think he's primed for even more this year. One of, if not the best power hitting catcher in college baseball this year. So happy to snag him in the second round and shore up my catcher spot.
Noah Darling of College Baseball Central, you're next.
When I made my first round pick, I immediately thought, okay, we were kind of thrown into it. We were like, okay, who on earth did I just forget about? And with my second round pick, I took probably the splashiest guy on the board in terms of Rintaro Sasaki. Huge risk. He could literally be a flop, and I don't think anybody would be like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And on the other hand, the guy could literally be the Babe Ruth of college baseball. When you're the home run king in Japan, I think I'll take that on my team. I'm willing to take the risk. The worst case is that every time he swings the bat, it's amplified to you all. So even if he only does like 5 or 10 things great this year, I know that you're going to see all of them. And for me, that's worth it to have it on my team. Best case scenario, he's the best player in college baseball. So I'm okay with the pick for now.
I think that was a great pick. I think it might work out pretty damn well for you. I'm high on the kid. I'm high on the Cardinal. I was hoping on one of my Southeastern Michigan studs getting back to me, whether it be Nolan Schubert or Ike Irish. Both of them get sniped in this round, so I'm leaning into the heavy starting pitching aces that I went with last year. Give me Ryan Prager of Texas A&M. Their Friday night starter from a College World Series runner-up team last year. He was an All-American, 2.95 ERA, struck out 124 in 97.2 innings with only 20 walks. Ben Upton, go ahead.
Yeah, so I get the snake draft here. So back-to-back picks, right?
Yep.
I know we have to address that every single time, but I went with a guy who I just enjoy watching play baseball, and somebody that I always dreamt I would play like one day, which I never happened. But Tanner Thatch from UNCW, I think that conference is very hitter friendly. He won't be facing SEC and ACC pitching week in and week out. And he hit 27 homers last year as a sophomore. So I'm expecting bigger and better things for him. I want to lock down the first base position with just some power. And then to snake it back around, it was a decision between myself and Jack and Dimitri. We went with a guy that we think could be one of the most electric pitchers in college baseball this year, in Colton Smith from Georgia. He gets a full offseason with Wes Johnson, the pitching guru, who helped build Paul Skeens. And he was somebody that started out the season last year in the bullpen for Georgia and worked his way into pretty much their number one guy. His ERA was a little inflated, but struck out like 2 guys per inning pitched. And I think he's going to be better this year. So I like Colton Smith a lot.
It was between Colton Smith and this next guy for my next pick, so I like it a lot too. The K/9 was ridiculous last year, but I ended up going with, I think it's everybody's breakout pick this year. I don't think it's any secret by now with the amount of preseason buzz he's gotten. Gabe Gackel, the expected Friday night starter of Arkansas, freshman All-American last year out of the bullpen, 2.32 ERA, struck out 57 and 42.2. I think his high 90s fastball with 3 off-speed pitches that had whiff rates over 35% is going to chew guys up this year from that starting spot in the SEC. Pick number 3 in the third round, Noah Darling.
When you can get a former conference player of the year in the third round, I think I had to jump on that. So I took Max Ballou from Texas. Of course, coming in from the Big 12 to the SEC, so that'll be an arguable jump. I don't necessarily see it as big as some of you guys might, but I'm sure that there'll be a little bit of a drop-off, but 18 home runs last year. Feel pretty good about that pick.
All right, Will Mossa.
Yeah, taking a bit of a risk with a guy who was pretty banged up last year in the Pac-12. I'm going Trent Caraway from Oregon State this year. They will be independent this year, so a little bit more of a friendly schedule. He missed the majority of last season, but showed some really good flashes, had a solid summer in the Cape in limited at-bats. So I think he is one of those guys that has a really high ceiling as long as he stays on the field. So taking a bit of a risk with an infielder here.
All right. We'll see how friendly that schedule is. A lot of road trips there. College Baseball Insiders picking 5 in the third round.
All right, we're going to take a Big 12 entry into the SEC with Kyson Witherspoon. He pitched against Tennessee's loaded offense last year early in the season, pitched really well. I think he had 8 or 9 strikeouts. He kind of started off a little slow outside of that game, but then really came out strong to finish the season, had a great offseason. I think that the jump to the SEC is not going to be as hard on him. He's a hard-throwing righty, coming off, like I said, a great year. High strikeout guy, had 90 strikeouts and 80 innings to 40 walks. So I think he'll do pretty well. Not saying the Oklahoma Sooners will do well, but I think on Friday nights he'll give him a good chance.
All right. 6th pick in the 3rd round belongs to Jake Fetner.
So I went with a catcher here. I think it's a very top-heavy catcher year, and there's a big drop-off after the top guys. And I went with Grant J. I guess he's a mid-major at DBU, even though DBU is like the Gonzaga of college baseball. They're going to be very, very good this year. He should dominate in the Conference USA. And he hit 20 bombs last year as a sophomore, so he should only be better as a junior.
All right, and that brings up Johnny Venezia in the 7th pick of the 3rd round. He went with Luke Stevenson, a catcher out of North Carolina. He's good. He's one of the top catchers in this catching class. Like Jake just mentioned, it's pretty top heavy. There's a couple of them that are drawing 1st round value from what it seems like in the 2025 draft. He hit 284 last year as a freshman with a 955 OPS, 14 home runs, and he's probably going to be one of the leaders in that Tar Heels offense. To finish out the 3rd round, Alfred, just give us one of your picks here on the turn, and then we'll move into talking about all of our teams separately.
Yeah, I'll wrap us up with my 3rd round pick before I make the turn into the pick after that. It's going to be Dean Curley, shortstop out of Tennessee. Pretty solid freshman season considering you won a national championship, batted 285, had 12 home runs. I think he can really get 20 home runs this year. I think the returners on this team, which he's included in that, are going to be massive in the great season they'll have again. So I figured that was a good place to get my shortstop and ended up going Dean Curley.
Before we get to the full team previews of all 16 guys that everybody drafted in this year's college baseball fantasy draft, SGPN has partnered up with Edge Boost, the premier Visa debit card for bettors. An Edge Boost card allows you to avoid the hassle of having your card denied at sportsbook, DFS site, sweepstakes site, racetrack, or casino. Plus, you can earn up to $750 per month in cashback rewards for using your Edge Boost card. And you know your money is safe because the card is FDIC insured. The best part is no credit checks and it's completely free. Sign up today with the promo code TCESGPN, or you can use code SGPN so you can get better cashback rewards and instant tier 2 status. That is edgeboost.bet. Promo code SGPN, edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. And the big game is coming this Sunday, and Underdog has you covered. Underdog Fantasy News customers get a Travis Kelce free pick if they sign up before the big game. Plus, Underdog Fantasy's site-wide no-sweat entry token is now live. You can cash in on Underdog with an entry or get bonus credit in return. Sign up today with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. And now we're home free with the 2025 College Baseball Fantasy Draft. All righty, I'm going to pull off some fancy production moves here in 2 seconds. And Ben is up first with revealing the entire teams here to cut down the length on the draft. So yeah, these cool graphics you're going to be seeing these on all of the guys' social media Wednesday morning, afternoon, night. Also on our show's Twitter, TCE on SGPN. Ben, go ahead and lead us off. You were in that number 1 spot. I mean, you have the honor.
It was crazy to me that Ethan Petrie fell all the way to the 4th round. And obviously last year wasn't as great as his freshman year, but we're talking about a kid that took Paul Skeens deep, I think twice his freshman year. And I mean, just a huge body, raw power, and he's gonna be hitting in the middle of a pretty good South Carolina offense this year. So I like his chances with extra base hits and runs batted in. Ben Jacobs is a little bit of a homer pick, even though it's getting a little trendy right now. His mom has followed us on 11.7 since 2019. She was one of the first followers we got, and that was back when Ben Jacobs was, I think, a sophomore in high school, maybe a freshman in high school. So she's been hyping him up for 7 years now. Brooks Bryan, no-brainer. Guy had 90 RBIs last year. Troy's going to be a wagon scoring runs this year. I love it. Catcher pick, power hitter. Kyle Lodice from Georgia Tech. Just kind of taking a shot on him. I've heard some good things about him this fall, and Georgia Tech's offense should be pretty good. So I just took a flyer on a shortstop. You guys are going to have to help me on this last name, but I think it's Rock Cholowski. You got to help.
I would guess Cholowski there, but
Cholowski.
Yeah, I think it's
Cholowski. Okay. Honestly, I looked at top second base prospects in the 2026 MLB draft, and he was like 18th. So I was like, I'll throw him in there. This was all during the ABCA too. So
yeah,
I was scrambling a bit.
The rounds were flying. I did not expect it. I didn't mean to do that to you guys and have you pick 8 picks. I thought it was going to be more like 2, and those would be the easy ones to come to mind. But yeah, we did pretty damn well this year with the speed of it.
It went by quick, but I loved it. And then Austin Smith, I think, has a legitimate chance to win two-way, like John Olerud, two-way player of the year this year. I'm pretty close with the San Diego coaching staff, and they've been talking this guy up, saying that he's an all-around baseball player that loves the game. So that was my two-way pick. And then I had to represent the Mercer Bears. Back-to-back picks, SoCon champs in football in 2024. They're going to be SoCon champs in 2025 for baseball. Ty Dowley, 25 home run potential. And Scary Terry Busey, transfer from Georgia Tech 2 years ago, one of the best closers in the ACC. Bad year last year for him, but huge bounce back year this year. Murph Gray, stud, just all around stud. I don't even know if he's going to play third base for him. He might play somewhere else, but he was my third base spot. Jared Spencer, shout out to Mason McRae for director of analytics for Texas. He said Jared Spencer could be the best pitcher since Hagen Smith and Paul Skeens. Just electric transfer, left-handed guy from Indiana State. Cam Koziel, I don't know too much about him, but he was a guy that transferred around a good bit the last couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know. I think just once, Noah. Okay.
He was definitely at Vanderbilt last year. So.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I saw him in a high school showcase like 3 or maybe 4 years ago. I think it was a year right after COVID, and he was the best player on the field. So try to keep up with him, and a little partial there. And then Jacob Duden, he's going to be such a stud for that NC State bullpen. And Sherman Johnson, I broke the rules a little bit, or maybe
you invented a new rule that probably will be enforced next year.
Yeah, another guy I saw play in high school out in Georgia. He went to Dallas Baptist last year, and now he's going to be, in my opinion, the best junior college prospect in the country. Sherman Johnson, shortstop from McLennan Junior College. And there's my board.
All right. That's team 11.7. The next one up was myself. This is my team here, number 1 overall. Like I already mentioned, these first 3, all starting pitchers, all aces, in my opinion. I think I got one of the more stronger pitching staffs in this league. Jamie Arnold, Ryan Prager, Gabe Gackle, and then went with that strong catching class at the top. Round 4, I took Caden Bodine out of Coastal Carolina. Two-way, I think it's very important to not forget about that position in college baseball. Those points do tally up pretty quick, and if you get left behind in that category, could be a mountain to climb. So I went with Kyle Johnson out of Duke. Shortstop, I went with Jalen Flores out of Texas. I think he's one of the better returning producers in the country at that number 6 hole. In the 7th round, I took Eddie Hakopian. We were pretty flexible with fielding positions when it came to drafting in early January. Not a whole lot was known, but I had heard through the grapevine, a.k.a. Swope did a press conference an interview with Perfect Game at ABCA, saying that Eddie Hakopian would be the second baseman this year. So I was like, I'll take some pop at that second base spot. 8, I went with one of the more proven outfielders from the mid-major ranks. Give me John Bay out of Austin P. I think he's good for 20 bombs this year. Wyatt Hensler, the Ivy League home run king. I threw him at the utility spot. Not sure where he's really going to play in the infield for Texas A&M right now. 10th round, I went with Gavin Turley in the outfield, more returning production in that 10th and 11th round from the Pac-12 last year. as the 11th round pick, I went with Kian Vu of Arizona State. Right now in kind of like a position battle, or he'll be DHing for the Sun Devils, I believe. And then just in cautious in case of a injury, or last year my first round pick did not work out with Josh Hartle, I went with Evan Blanco, the Southpaw Friday night guy for Virginia. 13th, I went with Mitch Voigt, my guy from Michigan. He's a first baseman, outfielder this year. Kind of going to be mixing in maybe at second base too. So Mitch Voigt. Then I went with Dylan Navarre, a mid-major stud from Western Michigan, to kind of round out the outfield with some depth there. I like Carrington Cross for Cincinnati. I'm really high on Jordan Bishel's squad this year, so he's going to be at third base for me. And then just a depth piece in case Mitch Voigt moves off the first base bag into the outfield or second base. I grabbed Luke Heyman, kind of hoping for a bounce back year. He'll be catcher or first base for the Gators some this year. And picking third, or who went third, was Noah Darling of College Baseball Central. Here's his team.
Yeah, no, I forgot to say it earlier. I just wanted to credit you for having the humbleness, if that's a word, to recognize that, hey, you know what, I'm Noah number 2, and you brought in me Noah number 1. So I appreciate that, and it does mean a lot, like I said earlier. Before we do dive into my squad, I do want to say that you getting Evan Blanco in the 12th, I think maybe 4 months from now, is something that we're going to look on and say, certainly you didn't run this league and somehow cheat somehow. But that was shocking when you just pulled that up. I thought, oh, my God. But in my 4th round pick, talking about those top 3 we already had, Dom Vagley, this was kind of a reach because I don't know if you guys are as high on him as I am. I tweet about him probably about once a day. So I'm huge on him. Kansas loves him. They're really thinking that they're going to be able to keep him for 3 years. Team USA guy. He was the Big 12 freshman of the year last year. Okay. Oh, I just made myself. Okay, there we go. That was you. All right. And then I got Trey Phelps from Georgia, 353 as a freshman last year. Utility guy. I really like how he plays. I think I can slide him in a few different spots. Maybe he'll stick in a position this year, but at least for now, I feel like I could manipulate where he plays a little bit. Daniel Cuvée coming in next, 24 homers, 75 RBIs a year ago. Then you got Anthony Ianson coming in to LSU from UCSD, 85 Ks and 82 innings pitched last year. I think when you grab an LSU arm, you got to feel excited about that. Of course, Wes Johnson's gone now, but maybe Jay Johnson still has some tricks up his sleeve. After all, I think he's a pretty all right head coach. Then you got Jackson West from Florida State, catcher, 274 last year, transfer from Alabama as a freshman. I think this Florida State lineup is maybe a tick below where they were last year, but still in a position where they can compete to go to Omaha. And he's due to take the next step, at least offensively. And then Grayson Grinsell coming back for Oregon. I think he won something like 12 games last year. I think part of that was because he was a reliever in a couple of those, but he became a really dynamite starting pitcher by the end of the year. All Pac-12 honors, struck out 99 guys. Those are numbers I'll take every time, especially if you're going to sit here and tell me that the Big Ten is worse than the Pac-12. I'll take that when he's going to be facing what you guys might describe as lesser offenses. I'm making up a lot of narratives about you guys, and you guys are just on mute, so you can't really say anything. But then Luke Gaffney, speaking of the Big Ten, last year's Big Ten Freshman of the Year, coming into Clemson. The buzz on him has kind of been up and down. I really, really like him, and I think he's a phenomenal player. I guess he knew he was going to go to Clemson right away, one of those do not contact guys. So I don't think they're going to just bury him, and he certainly has the talent to do whatever he wants in terms of success on the field. RJ Austin, another utility player who's been at Vanderbilt for what feels like forever, even though he's only a junior, because that's what happens. You start right away. Excellent player, going to steal me a lot of bags, hit some yaks on a team that does not leave the yard a lot. Then DJ Newman, shout out Perfect Game. If you know, you know. Credit their graphic for throwing the two-way on my radar. Noah, you just talked about maybe being left behind in the two-way game. I think Perfect Game timed it up perfectly, so I give a lot of credit to them for that pick. Justin LeBron at Alabama, outstanding freshman last year, really athletic, swiped 10 bags last year, 40 RBIs. Go ahead and give me repeat numbers for that, and I'll take that at where I drafted him. I think he's a lot better than that. Maddox Maloney, a bench shortstop for me, but again, another really strong freshman season up in Eugene last year. Noah Franco, it feels kind of cheating, number one, to have 3 Noahs in one show, number 2, to have two two-way guys on a team. but I really like Noah Franco based on the buzz. He was the Big 12 Freshman of the Year in the preseason. Of course, a lot of things could happen between now and then, but when you receive those honors in February, it means something, especially when I can get him with the second to last pick. So I'll take that all I can get. And then Dylan Viggy with my last pick. That was another shout out to you, Noah. I know that you might have been chopping at the bit to maybe take him with your last pick. Who knows? But a guy that had a lot of buzz as a freshman and has MLB draft buzz as a draft eligible sophomore this year. He's due to take a next step, and I'll let him mature a little bit with that 16th pick.
All right. That's the team for College Baseball Central this year. I don't think I was going to take Vigu just because I had 4 studs already.
Right. Yep, I bet.
But I like the amount of Michigan players on this. I was actually kind of surprised. There was like 4 or 5 of them that got drafted this year. So maybe we're going to do better than a lot of the preseason prognosticators out there.
It doesn't help when Tracy Smith talks to me in the middle of this draft.
Texted you. Will Mossa, he's up with the 4th team here in the draft. Go ahead and list your guys.
Yeah, I went with Nick Dumasnil from Cal Baptist in the 4th round. Legit 5-tool guy, stole 27 bags in the Cape this year. Just a freak, does it all. Really excited to watch him play this year. Next, I went with a pitcher in Cam Leiter, which as of just a couple of days ago, I've heard that his rehab is slowed down. So if he comes back with any sort of decent timetable, this could be a huge get back for me in the second half, but this might end up killing me through the season. The 6th round, I went with Gavin Cash, transferring to Texas A&M from Texas Tech. Could be a big bat for that lineup, adds a lot of depth, and has a ton of protection. So I'm anticipating a solid bounce back for him in the SEC. Then I went Henry Godbout for my utility spot, one of the better bats in one of the better hitting lineups in all of college baseball. The 8th round, I went with Ben Abelt, who had a sub-2 ERA as a closer last year at TCU. Rumor has it he'll be getting the ball on Friday nights for the Horned Frogs. Really excited to watch him throw. Legitimately could be the Big 12 pitcher of the year. 9th round, one of my favorite bounce back candidates for 2025, Cam Maldonado from Northeastern, another mid-major guy that just gets after it. Him and Mike Sirota, were fantastic for the Huskies the last couple of years. The 10th round, going with what I think is potentially the best hitting second baseman in all of college baseball, Blake Barthel from Coastal. Next up in the 11th round, I went with Paxton Kling from Penn State. He comes over from LSU. He's a defensive demon, which I know doesn't do me much good in fantasy, but has a ton of pop, lots of speed. Gambino has said fantastic things about him in fall camp, so I think he can play a big piece in a Penn State team that a lot of people are sleeping on. We've got a small mistake here on the graphic. In the 12th round, I went with Nelson Keljo from Oregon State, another guy that was a reliever closer last year, supposedly making the jump into the starting rotation. Could be a boomer bust pick for me. I might regret this later on. We'll find out. The 13th round, I went with two-way Will Rogers from Michigan. Threw a lot of innings for them last year, was productive enough at the plate. I may have waited too long to go two-way in this thing, and I definitely regretted that once we hit into the double-digit rounds and I realized I didn't have one. The 14th round, I went with one of my favorite players, Tyler Cerny from Indiana, absolute stud, 10 home run guy last year, 20-plus doubles, led the Big Ten. 60 RBIs, really, really good in the field. I think he's just kind of another fantastic year for an Indiana team that I think is going to be really, really good. In the 15th round, I went with Tyson Bass, Division III transfer to North Carolina. Scott Forbes raved about him in fall camp. Think he's going to have a massive year. Really, really excited to watch him play. Rumor has it he could be a potential 5-tool guy. And rounding out my team, I went with Merrick Houston, who is a first-round talent this year, but slipped all the way to the 16th round. I know the offense has never quite been there for him for his first couple years at Wake, but I've heard really good things in fall camp that he's developed in that realm. So hoping he can produce for me in case somebody goes down.
All right. I will say at the top of the show, I did mention to the guys, there would maybe be an error. I thought it would be more spelling than completely skip over a guy and then completely screw up the rest of the roster graphic. But
if you do want to trade, I will take Blanco in the 12th if you want to make that trade real quick.
I'll hold on to my guy in the 12th round spot. You can keep Keljo. I think you drafted Did you take Keljo before me? Where was this at? What number are we?
I took him in the
looking at?
12th.
Yeah, you did. I took
Yeah.
Blanco 95th, and you had Keljo 93rd. So
Yeah.
you had a chance. So fifth here. Who wants the big camera spot? Quentin?
Give it
Grissom?
to Quentin. My only real contributions to this were, I guess I'll take credit for Vahiva Aloy. This guy he came in with a lot of momentum, but really got off to a slow start. He looks really good. He was another guy, him and Ryder Helfrich both just absolutely dominated in the Cape Cod League. Helfrich is another catcher. You talk about a loaded catcher, just roster in general here. That was going to be my pick. I was hoping we could get him late. And then Q said, let me get more Virginia Cavaliers. So Carter Gaston, the West Coast Conference Pitcher of the Year. I think he had 71 strikeouts, sub-3 ERA at 63 strikeouts. A lot of momentum around him. And then Joseph Jerwa. Did I say that right? He had 91 strikeouts for Michigan State. Thank you. Noah, I also really like your Dom. I've been calling him Vogel pick, so thanks for correcting that. I'm really high on Kansas this year too. But Q, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I went with preseason All-American Anthony Martinez. He had a great freshman and sophomore year. I think he continues that. I guess you could say batting 390 freshman year, 316 is a slight drop-off, but you'll take that on your worst day by any means. Harrison Didowick, I felt like was a steal that maybe he's getting slept on. Huge power bat for O'Connor on the left side. I think he hit 23 last year. Kind of fell asleep in Omaha, but he's picked it back up in the fall. Huge draft potential there. Matt touched about Aloy. I think he'll bounce back better in what should be a better Arkansas lineup overall. I'll just be honest here. Kate Climby, I was looking for a third baseman. Seems like it's kind of a tough spot this year in college baseball to find a premier guy. Huge JUCO number, so we'll take a chance in a Big 12 that should be pretty down. Blake Sear, he's going to be playing left field, a little bit of second base if need be, a little bit of shortstop if need be. So we threw him in the utility spot. I think he has a huge bounce back coming back off of injury. I think you'll see more of his freshman year numbers that he put up in Miami. Ryan Weingartner, a solid backup shortstop for us, needed a Big Ten pick. Decent numbers, batted a little over 300, had some pop. I think he had close to 10 home runs. Jacob Ferencz, I think he's one of the best catchers in baseball. Huge power numbers, a lot of gap-to-gap hitting along with that over-the-fence power. Great defensive catcher there in Charlottesville. Avery Nieves, I think is how you pronounce it. College of Charleston's going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. He's one of the better outfielders on the team in the conference, batted mid-300s, so I like him a lot. And then had to go with another Gator, Cade Curlin. I think is going to have a huge bounce-back season. Was playing with broken hand early in the season, just said he really was never comfortable. But this year he looks comfortable in fall and spring. He's starting to go back to hitting that right center gap, which is where he excelled the best his freshman year. Eric Paulson, thanks to Fetner for this one, helped me out here with a two-way player. I kind of forgot about it, to be honest, but preseason, I think third-team All-American, you can't go wrong with that. And then to end it out, Cade Lewis, Butler transfer, huge numbers expected in that pretty stout Wake Forest lineup. When you looked at last year's lineup, there was only one or two pieces. I think this year there's a lot of protection in those guys, a lot of opportunity to score some runs, get base hits. So it sounds like he's going to be more than likely the starting third baseman, batting in that 5-6 hole, and then have some DH. So I like that. I like Cade Lewis to have a good year in Wake Forest and a hitter-friendly ballpark.
All righty. We moved to Jake, who was picking sixth. Here is his team.
So last year I got screwed with a two-way. I picked Cole Mathis last year, and he was awesome with his bat, but I didn't get any. I think he ended up being my first baseman. And so I went early with the two-way with Chris Arroyo, who was a former Gator, transferred out. He raked in the Northwoods. He was actually a pitcher only his 1 year as a freshman with the Gators. But he could be the Sunday starter, and he's also just been raking in the fall and early in the spring from what I've been hearing. Then I went with Chris Hakopian, who I think he's awesome. He played third base last year, and he's going to be their shortstop at Maryland. Maryland team, I think, is going to be pretty darn good this season. I'm not sure if he's the best defensive shortstop, but he's going to rake, and we're not. We have no fantasy points deductions for in the field. I went with Ethan Conrad in the 6, one of the top transfers in the country. I think we transferred from Marist, and he was another one who dominated on the Cape over the summer. I went with my first pitcher, J.D. Thompson in the 7th. I'm surprised he fell this far. Just Vandy's pitching factory, lefty, should be pretty darn good this season. I wanted another insurance for the two-way because of last year. So I was just trying to look for every player who's played a little bit of both ways. So I went with Caden Bogenpole, I think it is. I don't know, Noah Darling.
I think so.
Is that the pronunciation? He's just a 6'6", just beast who is going to play center field. And apparently he throws high 90s. He hit 20 bombs as a freshman last year. I think he's a draft-eligible sophomore. He's due for a big year in the MVC. My second pitcher went with James Elwenger. DBU, just another pitching factory. I love this DBU team. I had another guy from that team. 10th round, I went with Hunter Hines. He feels like he's been playing college baseball for 20 years, but he's going to hit a bunch of homers, and he's going to be a solid first baseman. Not necessarily a great draft prospect, but he's a good college player. Then 11th round, I went second baseman, Danny Dickinson, big-time transfer from Utah Valley. He played a little shortstop last year, but he played a majority of games at second base. I think they're going to move Stephen Milam to shortstop, and Dickinson's going to be the second baseman. I think it's pretty good value for someone who could be a first-rounder. 12th rounder, I went with Mason McConaughey. I think he would look pretty darn good when he got moved into rotation last year, about halfway into the season. Not a really overpowering guy, 93, 94, but some good off-speed, good pitch mix. Locates very well, doesn't walk a ton of guys. And in the 13th round, I went with Joey Volchko, just a power arm top recruit. I think, was it Alfred who tried drafting him and already had too many ACC guys? So I was about to pick him anyways, and I saw Alfred wanted him, so I got him before anyone else could grab him. And I went with Daniel Jackson, the 14th round as backup catcher. This Georgia team has so many bats, so I don't know if he's going to catch, DH, just not really sure but he's such a good premier bat who was a SoCon freshman of the year that I think they're going to find a way to get him in the lineup somehow. I went with another two-way in Logan Redeman, who was the Friday night guy as a true freshman last year at San Diego. I know Ben said he knows the San Diego coaches. I read in their fall report that he's been one of the best hitters on the team as well. And so if him and the combination of him and Austin Smith, and I think Adrian Beltre Jr. is also a two-way guy as a freshman. So they have a bunch of two-way guys. They're not a deep team, but it's going to be a fun team to watch with all those two-way guys. And he was the Friday night starter last year, so he could rival his own teammate for the Olerud Award. And then in my last pick, I was hoping this guy would follow me. 25-year-old, I think it is. So he's not much younger than me, Ben Miller, who hit 360 in his first year at Duke last year, transferred from the Ivy Leagues. Just going to rake in that lineup again. And I think he's the team captain. So I like that the last round.
All right. And we do want to say bye to Quentin Mills as he's heading out. He was bouncing in and out whether or not he would do the show tonight. We appreciate the time. I apologize to Alfred, who I didn't even realize. So I was mixing up. I did it last minute to when I figured out that Q wasn't going to start the show with us. I only had 7 camera spots, so I didn't even realize that Alfred was kind of hanging out behind our layout here. So I definitely apologize for not having you on our screen. But yeah,
I was there in spirit. Don't worry.
All right, just kind of jumbling all of them around with Q, whether or not he'd be there. But yeah, Johnny's team next. He's out with the flu tonight, but I am representing his team in spirit here.
Jordan played with the flu.
Yeah, that's true. Very damn true. We'll see if this flu draft team performs as well as Jordan did. Henry Ford 1, Devin Taylor 2, Luke Stevenson 3, like we previously mentioned. Johnny's really high on Chase Shores. He appeared in like 6 games his freshman year, went down with Tommy John surgery. It wiped him out for all of 23, all of 2024. He's back. Don't know what role he's really going to have. He might not even start, but he could be a closer if he racks up some saves. It might save Johnny on the points side there, but if he's definitely a starter, I do believe in this talent. He's a monster in that 6'8" frame. Shortstop out of Arizona, Mason White, big time. Go big or go home power, and kind of average and strikeouts show for it. Last year, Johnny V's team was a lot of that kind of gamble, whether or not they'd hit home runs, limit the strikeouts. He kind of went, he stepped it back a little bit on the strikeout side, but a lot of power still, as Gavin Grahovic was up next, third base spot out of Texas A&M. He might even play some second base. So Gavin Grahovic there last year, I think he led the country for freshman home runs. 7th round, he grabbed Gavin Keelan, second baseman of Tennessee. He had a great year last year with Louisville, playing shortstop. He's probably going to move to the Keystone there. 8th, he went with Liam Peterson, the Friday night guy last year of Florida. Probably hoping that he's going to take a step up in, evolve after the freshman year. He pitched a couple of times, I believe, in the Cape. So we'll see what happens with Liam Peterson for this upcoming season. AJ Gracia in the 9th round there. Outfielder, first baseman for Duke. He had a great freshman year. We'll see what he can do once again for the Blue Devils this upcoming year. Bryce Molinaro, I think, is a sleeper for Penn State this year. He's a third baseman, could be playing all over the infield there. He drafted him as a utility guy in his 10th round pick. 11th round, he went with Matt Scott, who's got plenty of arm talent. Just got to hone in on that strike zone for the big fella out of Stanford. He also got a 12th round steal when we were talking about Evan Blanco, the other round or the other team. Jason DeCaro is the one that I think we might look back on and say this was a 12th round steal. That guy was a stud last year, pitching on Sundays for most of the season. Who knows what slot he's going to fill in, but I mean, that North Carolina rotation's loaded. 13th round, he went with the outfielder from Arizona State, Brandon Compton. He's got a really good bat himself. He's a draft prospect for the upcoming year, I believe. 14th round, Landon Beidelshees from Arkansas, another transfer pitcher that role's kind of yet to be determined, whether he's going to be one of the top arms out of the pen or maybe the Sunday starter for the Hogs there. 15th round, he went with Braylon Brooks, a two-way guy. I believe he's a freshman. Probably the 10th man in the lineup for the Pokes, but if he cracks into the lineup, Johnny's hoping for some production there. And then he went with Dean Mijos, outfielder of Coastal Carolina, to round out his team there in the 16th round. Alfred Ezman is going to wrap this thing up for our teams here with the 8th and final team.
Yeah, so heading into the 4th round after Dean Curley, I snaked with Brendan Summerhill. Really good draft prospect for 2025 and had a just huge breakout sophomore campaign. I'm really excited for him. He went off in the Cape, preseason All-American from Baseball America, as well as preseason All Big 12. So super excited for him. And then Noah Sullivan. You know, everywhere you look, people still are pretty high on Mississippi State, obviously so, year after year. Even though there's a lot of new faces to the team, Noah Sullivan's one of them, but at a two-way spot as a USC upstate transfer. I've heard a lot of great things in fall about him. And then Gabe Davis is just a monster pitching prospect, 6'9" for Oklahoma State. Got some starts this past season. I'm really excited for him to see what he could do. Got a little creative for my mid-major pick in the 7th round. I went Jose Torres out of Louisiana Lafayette. He was on the Buster Posey watch list throughout last season a little bit. He, hits very well. I think it was like 310 last season. It was 310 last season. Was the all-regional team for College Station last season, so I'm pretty excited about him. And then I can't believe Jared Jones, he was still there in the 8th round. You talk about probably one of the quieter almost 30 home run seasons last year because of, Charlie Condon and Christian Moore, other guys going off alongside him. But again, he's going to be a monster for LSU, and I'm excited to watch him. Went with the risk for my Big Ten pick. Jonathan Kim took a little bit of a step back after a great freshman season. I hope he can get back up to speed. Plus, I just wanted to hang out with everyone on the Michigan hype train. So, yeah, I just went with a Michigan guy just because. But and then in the 10th round, we recently on Southeastern 16 had an interview with Rob Vaughn at Alabama. He loves Zane Adams, and I'm sure a lot of you guys also love Zane Adams heading into this year. He's going to be a really good starter. He was a freshman who went deep in the games. I'm excited to watch him play. That was a good snag in the 10th round for me. Went in the 11th round with Cal Fisher. He's going to be one of the big bats for Florida State this year, I feel like. Maybe not like someone who's toward the top of the lineup, but a good guy to have for that team, just in general, after losing some people like Cam Smith, Tibbs, a really good other just foundational piece to have as Link Jarrett looks to get back to Omaha. And then you can't really go wrong with any of the Texas A&M hitters, so I went Caden Sorrell. I'm sure if anyone out there watched college baseball last year, you were familiar with him. Excited for him. He's going to have a great season. Aiden Teal has not gotten, a lot of plays thus far, but O'Connor, and everyone else who watches Virginia loves the elite talent that he has. So he was a good late round snag. Then I went with the bench for the final 3 picks. Tristan Becerra, one of Clemson's best hitters. I'm excited to watch him play this season. Jay Woolfolk, I think, is starting to kind of find his place within Virginia's pitching staff. I, saw him during the NCAA tournament. He really turned it up a notch in that regional. And then I believe he pitched that final game against Kansas State in the Super Regional to clinch their spot in Omaha, and he was impressive. So I'm excited to watch him play. And then I'm really happy with Dixon Williams from East Carolina in the 16th round because, he's a guy who took a big step up last season. He went up from 12 at-bats to 200 and hit, above 300 on the season. So he's just a good other bench player to have. And that rounded up my first draft with you guys here in this league.
All right. Fun stuff. I think that's probably the structure, the way we go moving forward. I like that. Even though some people were kind of sitting out for 20 plus minutes not talking, but we definitely got it to be able to fly much faster. And this is the part of the show I kind of want to have a little bit of fun. Ben has taken a work call, his day job calls. So currently he's able to hear us, but you can't see him right now. But the first thing that I wanted to ask all you guys, one of 2 or 3 that I'll ask, is were there any guys that were not drafted by everybody else that was maybe on your short list that you were eyeing up, possibly taking in one of the last couple of rounds? For me, I thought the shortstop position was deeper than it has been in a couple of recent years. I'm not sure if Colby Shelton and Eric Becker of Virginia. And we had Estevan Moreno of Notre Dame, Jonathan Vastine of Vanderbilt, Caden Kent out of Texas A&M, and then one other outfielder that 2 other outfielders that were on my list were Max Williams out of Florida State and Jack Winay of Wake Forest. I don't know if we want to kind of go in reverse order here. Alfred, if you have a guy or 2 or 3 or how many that you might have prepped that weren't picked, but you're kind of high on for the upcoming year, go ahead and rip.
Yeah, we mentioned him briefly, I think, in the intro, but Alberto Osuna, based off the recent news we've gotten in college baseball, I saw on Twitter he hit a moonshot in his second at-bat in Tennessee practice ever. So that seems like a good bet to have, especially in, that park that's known as a hitter's park by a lot of people. I think he's just going to have a monster year, and it just seems like Tony Vitello is just bringing in people to plug holes a lot of these other big players that got drafted left, and Osuna is one of them. So I guess that's the one guy I'll mention is Alberto Osuna. And I don't know if any of us were really even considering him whatsoever. Actually, no, because, he was going to be at Tampa. But, now with this news coming out, it's kind of like, oh, man, if, we had free agency and one guy's not working out, he's probably one of the first few you pick up.
Yeah. How about Jake?
Well, I did joke after after Ben took Sherman Johnson, that someone was going to take Alberto Ozuna, but if there was more rounds. Yeah, I thought Kobe Sheldon could have gone. Brody Donay is absolutely raking so far. He raked in fall practices, raking so far in spring practices. So a couple Gators. I didn't get it. Land a Gator. I landed a former Gator. A couple more pitchers. Christian Lim for Stanford should be their Saturday guy. Stanford just has a ton of arms. Some guys who take flyers on, like especially with FSU's injuries in the pitching. Wes Mendez was a high recruit. I think he could be their Saturday or Sunday guy. I think he's even look better than Evan Crest, who transferred from JU. So a couple of those guys. Jackson West. Did anyone take Jackson West? A good pick. Yeah, so that's about it.
All right. From College Baseball Insiders, Grissom, were there any names that kind of jumped off the page to you that were not picked? You're muted too, by the way.
Thank you. I mentioned Ryder Helfrich earlier. He's a catcher that I think is going to have a really good year, as well as Gage Wood, who's kind of battling with Landon Beidelshees for that last starting role. Thankfully, we start the season off with Washington State, so we'll get to see all four pitchers go. I'm trying to look. As far as pitchers go, did anybody take Cade Fisher, who's probably going to be the ace for Auburn now? He may have a good year. Logan Lunsford, Jake just mentioned in the chat. That's another guy. Going
our inner stream chat has been rolling thanks to a couple of jokesters we have in here.
Chat.
Our group chat's pretty damn good. I'm looking forward to the season with that.
I almost typed in there, but I'll just say it live. I said it was really nice of Jeffrey Dahmer to lend his camera to Noah for tonight's segment. But yeah, I still feel like we could draft probably 10 more rounds and get a lot of talent. One thing I did notice, which it kind of fits perfectly with the fact that Virginia is number 2 in the country preseason, a lot of Cavaliers drafted, really just across the board by all of us.
Yeah, it probably wasn't the best idea to give Noah a chance to stew over maybe a comeback here as Will Mossa is up next. Any names that were not taken that you were eyeing? You're muted too.
The big one for me was Jacob Walsh from Oregon. Had a massive year last year. He had 18 home runs, 56 RBIs. The average wasn't quite there, but a really solid power bat. And then another guy that I think is going to have another good year, that was a two-way I was eyeing up and nobody snagged, is Michael Lombardi from Tulane. Had some really solid numbers on the mound, good strikeout numbers, and was productive enough at the plate. So he would have been a nice two-way to scoop up in one of those late rounds as well.
All right. Same question to you, Noah.
Well, number one, I just wanted to thank Matt. We actually made a deal last weekend where he borrowed my large cutout of Baumwalker Stadium. You can just keep it and have that behind yourself as long as you want. And we actually have Q Millie sitting outside in front of my brick wall. So keep it up, guys. You guys do great work. But my 5, actually, that I had it kind of narrowed down to, Folger Boaz, coming off of injury last year. He was all hype coming into last year. And, of course, injury, so I understand why he wasn't drafted. That's a risk. Gabe Swanson was fantastic 2 years ago and in the postseason last year for Nebraska. If you amplify those postseason stats, you're looking at a National Player of the Year candidate. Of course, that's, if my aunt had uncles, or if my aunt had, she'd be my uncle. But then you look at Brody Johnston and Brenton Clark in the SEC. Of course, it's risky to take freshmen, but Brody Johnston performed terrific in the Epi League. And I just tweeted the other day that Brody Johnston and Brenton Clark are going to battle it out for SEC Freshman of the Year in a way that will remind people of Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire in '98. And then I had Braden Smith at Oklahoma State, who's a guy that maybe you're like, okay, I don't really know who that is, but there's been a lot of buzz on him in Stillwater, coming in from Iowa Western. So that's just kind of a close to home kind of a guy that I had to give a little bit of a shout out that I thought about for a minute there.
All right. And then if you guys don't have it pulled up, this is kind of one reason why I was like, it might not be a terrible idea to have it up. Is there a team out there that is in the league that is not yours that you think has a really good shot to win it this year? Does anybody want to start off and maybe list a favorite?
I can go ahead if you guys would like me to.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go College Baseball Central's team with Noah Darling. I think I was when the graphic got pulled up. The middle round picks, on top of the other, kind of made my eyes, bulge out of my head. The stretch I'm talking about is, with Phelps, Cuvée, Ianson, West, Grinsell, Gaffney, RJ Austin. Now, those are some studs drafted consecutively on that team. So that was the team that really made my eyes go wide. And if I had to pick a favorite besides myself, it would probably have to be Noah Darling and College Baseball Central's team.
All right.
Yeah.
Anybody else that wants to jump out?
I'll just keep the Noah Darling hype train going. His team, I mean, a lot of young guys. Drew Burris, Daniel Cuvée, they're going to be studs. Max Bellew, he's a short shot now to win the Golden Spikes. Sasaki was a ballsy pick, but again, he could be absolutely elite. Noah, your pitching staff, I think, is hands down the best on the board. And then you've got guys like Jake and Ben who have a really good mix of hitters. But I think College Baseball Central just has a really good balance, especially if Dom Vogely, how you say it, Noah, unmute it, correct me.
Vaguely.
I know you've been waiting to correct me.
Yep, it's vaguely. You think, God, this guy's vaguely an MLB All-Star.
Hey, there we go. I think Vaguely could have a big year, and same for Grayson Grinsell, who, if you caught our last graphic, we argued over who the fifth ace was going to be, but Grinsell ultimately got that spot. So I'm high on the Ducks this year.
I listed this guy as having my favorite team last year. I'm going to do it again. I really like his squad, Jake Fetner's. I think Andrew Fisher might have been a reach in the first round, but I think round after round after that was hit. Getting Joey Volchko in the 13th round, I think could be a steal if that guy's pretty overpowering in the ACC. I really like quite a few of those names that Fetner's got over there. Who else hasn't gone? Who else wants to nominate a favorite in the league? Noah?
Number one, I just wanted to say we all drafted great teams. I'm not going to give any of you guys bulletin board material, but I will say that throughout this process, as you all know, Johnny quickly became my rival in this league, but I have to give it up.
Yeah.
Even in the spirit of competition, I think his team absolutely scares me. I know you guys just said, oh, yeah, he's going to strike out. He's going to lead the league in Ks. That may be true. But the reality is that when you lead the league in Ks and you're still a good player, that means you're going to hit like 50 home runs per player probably because he's my rival. So I really like Johnny's team, and I'm glad he's not here because, frankly, I'd be throwing up if he was.
Yeah, I was actually going to say I was surprised how much I like Johnny's team. There was definitely a couple of head scratchers, a couple of Johnny picks like Braylon Brooks, who I don't think is going to get much playing time.
Should I do it?
He forgot to take a two-way.
Should I do it? So he was texting me in the final couple of rounds of this. He's like, I don't know who I'm going to take for my two-way guy. And I told him, well, there's one sleeper out there that might get some playing time, but I don't know how much time he's going to see. And it's Noah Franco. And he got so fucking pissed when Darling took him as a backup two-way. He's like, now what do I do? I'm like, I don't know. That was the one guy that I might have had for you. But, yeah, that was a pretty hilarious conversation receiving a text from him. Ben Upton's back from his work call. Ben, I don't know, were you able to listen while everything was going on or no?
I was not.
Okay, so I'll give you a question to stew on. Who were some names that weren't drafted that maybe you thought you're high on coming into the year, could have been drafted, but do you have a favorite team? Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you have a feeling of who's going to win?
I put it in a little chat right here while it was going, but Jake's team, I would trade my team for your team in a heartbeat. I think it was rounds like whatever was on the right-hand side, so maybe 9 through 16. Like every single guy on that list or that side of the list, I was like, oh my gosh, man. Like I would trade my whole team for those guys. So, Jake, you did a good job.
Appreciate it.
There we go. Anybody else?
I hated Noah Darling's team. I'm just going to throw it out there on the record. I hated Noah Darling's team.
Well, Ben, apparently you didn't miss it because you just missed half the group saying how great my team was. So it's really on brand that you disagree with common sense and logic.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Will, did you nominate
the story of my life?
Yeah, I'll jump in. My favorite team that is not my own is going to be the College Baseball Insiders. I thought the middle rounds were just fantastic with Aloy and Sear and Weingartner, all guys I'm super high on, and then snagging Carter Gaston pretty late. Just a demon guy who goes super deep into games, complete game machine. So I thought you did a great job, especially down the stretch.
Thanks,
All right.
Will. Checks in the mail.
There was one other question that I wanted to ask you guys too, a fun question. Everybody was listing their teams off one by one. Not many people, everybody was being polite and when speaking over them. So I would like to know kind of if there was a guy that you got sniped on that you really wanted, that you're kind of bullish, that you want to plant a flag and also say, hey, I think this is a really good pick. This is going to work out for you. If anybody wants to jump in first, you can, or I can lead us off with this kind of question as well.
I'll start off. I was hoping Aiden Teal would follow me. I just wanted as many Virginia guys as possible, just like NCAA Insiders. But I kept saying like, oh, he'll be around next round because he's definitely one of the most underhyped guys.
Yeah, the one that I was kind of heartbroken on that didn't get to me. Obviously, I mentioned the two Southeastern Michigan guys, but those were round 2. Right in round 3 again, though, I liked Grant J. I thought he went kind of early in round 3, but honestly, I think it might be worth it in the end because the amount of power in that bat, Conference USA pitching, I think he's got a chance to put up mid-20s again in tanks and hit for good average. So that was a guy that I really liked. Anybody else that want to go out?
Nolan Schubart getting sniped from us right before Zachary. That if we could have started with 2 Golden Spikes short list guys with Cam Canarella and Nolan Schubart, I would have felt really good about it. So thanks, Jake, for doing that.
I'll throw a name out there that I thought there was no way he would be picked in the first or the second round, but somebody that I'm high on and somebody that deserves to be in the first 2 rounds. But I don't remember who took it, but Aiden Knack at maybe the end of the first round or early second round.
Alfred.
Alfred. Whoa, dude, that I thought he would be in the round 4 through 6 territory, and I wanted him bad. I think he's going to be a stud this year.
I do too.
For me, one guy I was eyeing up, he got picked right before me, AJ Garcia at Duke. I'm going to be glued to him this year. Everywhere I look about Duke, he's listed on there as one of the names to watch, along with Ben Miller, who was taken very late. I was surprised about that one, but taken right before me was AJ Garcia. That was one guy I was eyeing up.
Noah, anybody that jumped out to you?
I was just going to come to you, Noah. I was just looking at some of your guys and remembering you sniping me. Of course, I knew that I was never going to get Mitch Voigt in a kind of one-on-one duel when it came down to you and I, but I really wanted Gavin Turley, and I remember him creeping down the board, and then I admit that I forgot about him. That's the trouble with this is you kind of have steered the viewers wrong, where you made it sound like you were this great God, where you just helped us out so much. You left us to the wolves. We had to kind of think to ourselves. I think Jake mentioned Jackson West earlier. I made that pick on a plane, 35,000 feet in the air. We're just going pure mind here. So there are certain guys that you just are like, yes, I want to pick him, and then an hour later it's your pick, and it's like, I don't remember anything.
You have a Johnny breathing down your neck, texting you.
Yes,
Has anybody picked?
And Johnny is mobbed up, as I'm sure we're all aware. Johnny is actually a distant cousin of the Sopranos.
Yeah, I believe it 100%. Anybody else that hasn't gone?
He's just a cousin with him.
Yeah. Anybody else that hasn't gone here?
Big one for me that I had circled that I did not get was Tanner Thatch from UNC Wilmington. One of my favorite dudes in all of college baseball. Coming into this thing, I was like, well, no matter what I do, I'm getting him. And he went in the second round, which I did not think he was going to go that early. So I was hoping I would get him in the third, and he never made it back to me.
And then, Ben, the one name that might not have been drafted, but you think is going to be really good, maybe a breakout stud for the upcoming year.
I don't know who wasn't drafted. I'm trying to think now. I can just rattle off the Mercer Bears roster if you want me to. Only 2 guys were picked.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. I mean, that would wrap up the show if you don't have anybody else that you want to throw out there.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. So we all plugged everything that we're doing for the upcoming year in college baseball this season. Drop everybody a follow. Some of them have their Twitter tag here on YouTube, but if it's not displayed on the stream, it'll be in the description. Also, if you follow me, Noah B77 _ on Twitter, or the show TCE on SGPN, we're going to be reposting all of these guys, gassing up their graphics, which of course I screwed up a couple of them during the stream that I'm going to go and edit and fix so they can post in the morning. But yeah, I mean, this took quite a bit of work. It was a fun preseason project. Was able to get a lot of us familiar with some of the names that were returning. I know for sure I was Googling, is this senior coming back for a 5th year and whatnot. There was a gigantic list that I had to cross off of guys that I thought were going to be playing for the upcoming year. So I really like this exercise because it's kind of like one of the first things that you want to do is find out who are the returning studs. But that's going to wrap up the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been the College Baseball Experience. You better start thinking about yours, and we are out of here.